Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Memories, the show that's a little bit about Minecraft, a little bit about memories. Last time we chopped this witch in here because we desperately want her to stay alive, because we love her. Hey, whoa, stay alive. Don't, don't, don't. In the last episode I talked a little bit about Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and the fun that I had with that, or in some cases lack of fun. In this episode, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about my BFF, my BFF Adam, who was in Cub Scouts for, I believe, 1 or 2 years. He was there when I joined, but he quit shortly after. I'm not sure why he quit. Maybe he just didn't like it. Who knows? I've always got a lot of quit in him. No, he doesn't. But God, I first met this guy back in preschool. He only lived about a half-mile away from my house, and so on the preschool bus they come pick you up, and we're sitting there together. I don't know how we met. I can't remember the first day we saw each other, the first time we realized that we should be friends. I don't know. It's hard to say that far back. Boy's goofy as heck. It's probably why we're friends, because I'm pretty goofy myself. I do think I remember the first time one of us went over to the other's house, though. He came over to my house first, I believe. I was in the trailer, and I think it was after school, or maybe it was the summer. I can't remember. I think it was... I'm feeling like it was kind of later, but not too terribly late. We get a knock on the door, and I'm used to being one of Mom or Dad's friends, but no, lo and behold, Mom comes in, says, "Hey Kyle, you got a visitor here." What? A visitor? Sure enough, Adam comes. "Hey, I just walked over to your house." What? Walked all the way over? Now, the reason that I was surprised is because in the past, Dad and I would explore the woods behind our house. And the woods that we explored, we would take hours and hours and explore. Just the woods we would explore, we wouldn't explore. Oh, it's snowing and raining. We wouldn't explore them in a strictly linear path. We would meander around a little bit, crossing streets and fields. So the only other time I remember seeing his house, I was very, very young, or seeing his house on foot, I should say, and we just spent hours crossing through woods. And we come out of the wood, and there's a field, and then his house. Now, I knew that was his house because I'd seen him get picked up. So I take off like a bat out of hell, running. It's Adam's house, it's Adam's house, it's Adam's house. And I'm just so excited. But Dad's calling me, "Kyle, get back here, get back here, get back here." Dad did not let me have fun that day. I was tearing through the hay, wanting to get over and see my friend. But later, I don't know how much later, I can't put these two into perspective. It's a time lapse since forgot. He comes over and he said, "Hey, I just walked over here." "What? You walked all the way over here?" And that began a long, long line of us going over to each other's houses, walking, crossing, friendship. In fact, to this day, well, not to this day, because this day I am currently in Florida, but once I leave Florida, the house that I'm building is right next to the field that I tore through all those years ago. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But he came over to my house. I showed him my room. I think we played outside for a little bit, and then he had to walk home. Mom was like, "Oh, I'm glad you could come over, Adam." And then after that, they were like, "Hey, Kyle, I guess since the ice on that has been broken, you can walk over to his house." I do remember some of the first times I walked over, I had to follow some strict rules. The way that his house is laid out, or our houses, I should say. Let's imagine this was my house. There's a street that comes up, goes out to like that. Then there's a main street that goes like this. Then past that main street, go down it a little ways, I shouldn't say main street. It was a one of the busier roads in the resort, but it wasn't the busiest. But then that would actually go onto a county road. Now, before you got to the county road, there was a field back in here, and then his house was at the edge of it. So I had to walk from my house up the street, up the hill, down the busier street, or the busy resort street, making sure to stay on the side of the road. That was stressed, very important. And then I had to cross through the field. I wasn't allowed to take the county road and circumnavigate the field. You might be thinking, why would you do that? Well, ticks. Ticks exist. And they sure as heck existed on my legs a lot of times. So I started walking to his house, he started walking to mine, and whoa. And that was a pretty fun time. When I walked over to his house, one thing that you need to know about Adam, he had a PlayStation 1. He had a Super Nintendo. Now, my parents, they didn't have these things. When Mom was pregnant with me, I think Dad got her an NES. And I had 3 games growing up. I had Super Mario Brothers, because everybody who owned an SNES owned Super Mario Brothers, with the Duck Hunt. It was the Duck Hunt edition. So those are 2 games. The third one, Zelda 2. Zelda 2 is by far one of the hardest games, I think, to date that I've even played. But back then, it was just impossible. It was just impossible. When I was very young, I used to watch Mom play it. She kind of fell out of playing those kinds of... She still plays point-and-click games. Kind of like I Spy's, Book of Picture Riddles, but for the computer. I'll have to fix this up a little bit. But she didn't really play those action-adventure games for too terribly long. But she did for a while, and I watched her play Zelda 2, and Ganon from Zelda 2 freaked me out beyond belief. Now, for those of you who never played this game or don't know what I'm talking about, if you play Zelda 2, which is already an impossibly hard game, you're given 3 lives. At the end of the 3rd life, if you don't complete the game, I guess, a silhouette comes up on screen. All the silhouette is just like this. It's almost like a square. Just imagine a big square taking up a large portion of the screen with angry white eyes, and it's got pig ears, and he goes. When I was a kid, that was the stuff of nightmares. I loved watching Mom play video games. But when she was on that 3rd life, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to walk away because that was too freaky. The 3rd life meant that I was going to see the scariness from this game, and I didn't like that scariness. That scariness was scary. I was a lot more afraid of things back then, obviously, as you can tell from the stories. Or maybe you can't because you don't know what I'm like nowadays. I'm less fearful of such things. Fear happens, but that no longer, in my mind, constitutes something worth fearing. Anyway, I grew up with the SNES. I grew up with the NES. He grew up with the SNES, the PS1. I would walk over to his house. I've had many fond memories of going over there in the summer. Summer stands out especially because you only go over during the weekends, really. Because during the weekday, it's a little busy, Kyle. Maybe you shouldn't go over. Of course, as I got older, that was a little bit less relevant of a rule. And we would hang out during the weekdays. But, you go over in the summer. I'd walk over. Walk over to his house, go through his field, get covered in ticks, absolutely covered. And then, we're not talking normal sized ticks, we're talking seed ticks or deer ticks. We've always called them seed ticks. I know a lot of people call them deer ticks. It's just a different little referral to them, but these seed ticks, would get all over my legs to the point where I actually, when I got to their house, had to take like 10 minutes to get them off me. I would have to take a piece of tape and try and tape them off, or something that I could use to scrape them off. Not like a knife, but something with a flat object with a kind of edge to it, but not too sharp. And we would play video games. I remember he had Crash Bandicoot Racing. And some of these may be for other systems, by the way. He had... what other games there was a game that we played, I think it was like Extreme Racing or something, where you got to choose between like 5 different characters. And they rode on a bicycle or a skateboard or something. You went down a hill, and you had to go through... There were gates that they stationed throughout the racing track. And there were yellow gates, or no, maybe they're red. Well, I don't know. I'm going to say red. Red, orange, and blue gates. Now, blue gates were worth the most, but they were in the hardest locations. And then as you traveled, you also did tricks. So you do tricks and get points. I don't know. It was just a load of fun playing those games. We would actually swim in the pool. He didn't have a pool, but his grandma had a pool. So we would walk over to his grandma's house, which was right next door, and swim in the pool. And he also had a trampoline in the early years. I almost forgot about that. He had a big tramp. Huge. Huge. Why not? This guy doesn't need physics to know how to party. The trampoline we actually wound up destroying at one of his birthday parties. I don't know how old he was, but we were still quite young. And it was me, him, and this other kid named Jonathan C. And Jonathan C. was a bit of a troublemaker. He and his sister lived with their grandma. I don't know what happened to the mom or the dad, but he was always kind of a little bit of let's say rougher edged character. I don't know what happened to him. I think she actually got pregnant and like did the whole too young to be a mom but still a mom thing. I don't know what happened to him. I might look him up later and confirm it. But we were jumping on this trampoline, and like one of the springs busted. Oh wow, that's funny. We kept jumping and another one busted right next to it. We kept jumping until at the end, instead of we could have, if we had fixed on the first spring, he would have had a trampoline for a lot longer. But it wound up with like half of the trampoline had springs on it, and the other half was just laying on the ground in a sad heap. So his mom threw it out. She actually kept the top covering and used it to cover her garden when the seeds were coming in. But that ended the trampoline days. And man, I think that birthday party, I remember him calling me and asking me if I could come over, and I said sure. I think it was in middle school, because I asked him who all was going to be there, and he said, oh, a lot of people. And I said, is so-and-so going to be there? Yeah, so-and-so going to be there? And some of the people I mentioned were in middle school. So he's like, yeah, oh, Storm, save me, senpai. But I got there, and there was like no one there, and I was like, oh, well, I would have come anyway. That Jonathan character, I remember Mom has a tendency to compare me to unfavorable people when I'm exhibiting an unfavorable trait to her, and it's a bit obnoxious. Oh, you're just like, because you do it to her, and it's a cruel assessment, but she does it to you, and it's like, oh, well, it's completely fair and reasonable. She would often say, because I'm more introverted, she would say, you're just like your Uncle Leo. What's that supposed to mean? You just don't like your family. No, I like my family. I just like solitude. But one time it was deserved. It was a Cub Scout meeting, and this was during the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, and like every answer I gave when they asked me a question was like Monica Lewinsky. I guess at that age I just couldn't handle the nightly news because I just made it into a joke. She's like, you were acting just like Jonathan C. during that. Oh, okay. Well, I'll try not to do it again. And I wasn't in trouble for it. I think she was just like, what? How annoying. And I actually I remember a lot apparently, but in this one, I actually, as we were driving home, we went around a little curve in the resort, and I remember thinking, I'm probably going to remember this moment for a long, long time. And I remember specifically the moment going around that curve. Anyway, that was how we broke the trampoline. We broke his pool because he and I were playing the Olympics. I don't know when this was. I'm going to say it was later middle school to early high school. I'm going to say earlier high school because I didn't feel like I wanted to off myself. No, I'm only very smallly kidding about that. But he had like a porch. It was one of those above ground 4 foot deep pools, and it had like a little bit of a porch around it, and we would run off the porch and jump into the pool. It was like the long jump. We'd run off, jump as far as we could into the pool. The 100-meter dash, we'd run without jumping, just continue running as we hit the water. And then I got the pool cleaner, and it was my brilliant idea to pole vault, and I pole vaulted in the pool. Well, the pool cleaner, instead of having a rounded rubberized tip, was metal, and the above ground pool was rubber, and it punctured the bottom. We didn't know this at first, so we're still playing, yada yada. It's time to get out, and as we're getting out and drying off, we hear water running. Well, what's the water running coming from? Is it your pool? So we get out, and I think I thought this would have happened, because after a few pole vaults, I looked at I was like, oh, that's gonna be dangerous. We better stop that. But I didn't say anything. And then we heard the water running, and sure enough, punctured the bottom of it, and it was leaking underneath the deck area, which was both annoying because it was hard to get to, but good because it was hidden. So first things first, we decided to repair the pool. Well, we can't tell his grandparents, because you're at that age where you can't admit. You just don't tell people when you did something wrong, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. So the first things first is we tried going to his shed, because he told me that they had a pool repair kit. Okay, that's good. Let's get the pool repair kit. We get the pool repair kit, and it contains these little rubber patches that you put in this glue. Well, you're supposed to glue it when there's no water in the pool. Now, we didn't have that luxury, so we just figured, well, if we do it on the outside, if we do it on the outside, it'll be dry enough because it's outside the water, not inside the water, despite the fact water was gushing out. Oh no, before we did that, we stuffed it with leaves. I think we put leaves in it thinking we want to keep as much water in as possible. And, or maybe that was after. Either way, the pool repair kit obviously didn't work. Big surprise there, I'm sure to nobody. But we were a little worried. Oh man, how are we going to fix this pool? I don't know which of us, maybe it was me, maybe it was him. One of us got the bright idea to shove leaves in the hole, because, beavers make dams, so why can't humans? Well, I'll tell you, fair listener, because the dams that we made are not waterproof, or at least ours weren't. But we stuffed leaves in there, and the trickle had been reduced, or the gushing had been reduced to a trickle, so we figured, that's good enough. Did Minecraft make a thing where they just automatically have you jump over blocks? Welcome to episode 11, guys, where I'm just learning that, despite the fact that it's been happening over and over again. That's a little annoying, but I guess I can live with it. So we reduced the gushing down to a mere trickle. Well, didn't do it there. Mere trickle, and we figured, well, that's probably good. I'm sure that it'll be fine for the rest of the season. I think when I went back over to his house the next day, he told me that his grandparents woke up at 3 in the morning, or 4, his grandpa did, because he heard from the filter suctioning up nothing. And so he unplugged the filter, went out there, and let the pool drain. And that was the last time we ever swam in that pool, because they threw it out afterwards. Which, it's a little sad, but all things come to pass, and the pool had a good run, and he Adam told me that his grandpa was planning on throwing it out at the end of that season anyway, because he was getting up there in years and he just didn't feel like taking care of it anymore. Which, yeah, okay, I can understand that. We're getting older, but we had a lot of good memories in that pool. His sister would always come in there and just dunk us. She was built like a tank. You try and like resist, and she would just like pick you up and then shove you underwater. There actually used to be a pool at the resort many, many years ago. I was talking about my BFF, and now I'm talking about this. I'll go back to my BFF because he plays a lot more of a role later on in years. But sticking with the early years, you don't get the luxury of choosing who you play with. It's kind of based on convenience, and even though he was who I would choose to play with and live nearby, you most of your memories come from school. Although I do remember once, and I feel so bad about this. I'm glad he doesn't remember it. When I was in elementary school, they had this thing where if your parent shows up for the day, you can eat with them in the booth, and you can pick some of your friends to come sit with you. And Adam was a shoo-in, but a few other people, hey Kyle, can I sit with you? Hey Kyle, can I sit with you? Hey Kyle, can I sit with you? And I said, I don't know, but I guess they took that to mean, yes, of course, come sit with me. I don't know, I think I said maybe, and they took that to mean yes, and so it was Hassel, which he's a good guy, and he's actually still a friend to this day, and awesome, so he deserved it. But it was also like this kid named Brandon, what was his last name? I don't know. And we weren't really friends. He was just kind of always there in the background. And then when Adam got his tray and he looked at me and he looked so despondent, like, I'm sorry, Adam. Please forgive me. He forgave me. He didn't remember it happening. But going back to the pool at the resort, we used to go there all the time when I was younger, and before Grandpa had completely ruined the resort. So, I don't hate my grandpa, but everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and he just so happened to choose a profession that was a major weakness for him. But the pool had it was just like a normal pool, but it also had like a cement frog that would filter the water and it would spit it in, and then a little deep end. And I do remember going there and swimming a lot while Mom, because back in the day I don't think we had a washer and dryer that worked. At a few points we had to use the laundromat. The building, let's see if I can remember this. Here was the pool, and then Grandpa's office. Or no. Pool, sitting area. And then I think it was the laundromat there, and then his office, and then, yeah, here was the store, the arcade, and then the restaurant, and then there was like a little extra sitting area. So it was a nice little kind of one-size-fits-all building for all the residents. What happened was the pool wound up getting, I don't know, after a few years he stopped taking care of it, and he said, well, it's more expensive to maintain than it's worth to him, which to him might mean I don't want to put any more money into it. Because that was kind of how the resort wound up dying under his hands. It wasn't any one decision, but it was more like death by 1,000 small cuts. We don't need the pool. Well, we don't need to take care of the playground. We don't need this, or this. And then before long, there was no reason for anyone to stay there when there were other places they could clearly come and visit. But the pool wound up dying. We actually still have the cement frog in our yard. Dad's using it as yard art. I should swindle it and then put it in my yard someday because of the hilarious obsession with Lord Keck 4chan has. But the rest of the building was going strong. I remember one time there was like some salesman or something who came and showed up and was trying to sell a back massage thing, guaranteeing that if you massage your back with it, you could be more flexible. And to demonstrate this, it was like one of those kind of like those of you that have ever seen pyramid scheme marketing, like Mary Kate or Cutco, know that they have to sell so many products to randos, and we were the randos. But he shows up and then he picks on me. He's like, let's demonstrate his flexibility. Let's do your flexibility before, now after. And then I was worried about being seen as weird, so I didn't like do a full rotation. Which, first of all, he chose a kid, obviously, because kids are way more flexible. That's no secret. A little devious, but I guess he's got to do what he's got to do. But then he massaged my back with it really quick. It was like a little roller. It was almost like a rolling pin. And then I did so much more. But honestly, it was just because I felt like I had more confidence to turn around, because I was already in front of everyone. I was like, well, they've already seen me turn. I'd better turn even further, or else it'll be weird if I can't. So I subconsciously helped him sell products, if he sold any. I don't know. This is the 90s. People had money back then. But what happened was, and I remember it was on a Friday. Mom used to pick me up from elementary school. During different grades, she would either pick me up or make me ride the bus. Most of the time, she picked me up. Hello? Hello? I must have been here at one point. Oh, yeah, okay, I can ship this. She would often pick me up rather than let me ride the bus, because when I rode the bus, I actually would fall asleep all the time. I remember one time, she usually got there at a certain time before they started calling buses, but they didn't. She wasn't there when they called buses, and so they called the first bus. I was like, ooh, I better go. So I panicked and then just left the room. I was about to jump on the first bus. Luckily, I opened the door and there she was. So I was like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to make a decision on my own. 5th grade rolls around. It was a Friday. It was in May. It was actually close to the end of the school year. Mom picks me up, and I'm talking to Adam, my bestie, and he says, or I don't know, Mom says, ooh, yeep. Mom says something like, Kyle, the resort burnt down. I didn't know what she meant. Then she explained it was the building. She was actually working for Grandpa on the side at this time. She later told me that at first it was very uncharacteristic of him how good-natured he was being about it, but she thinks he was in shock because after a few days, she said the not so much the anger, but the distance he was keeping from people, and the ease at which he got annoyed with people returned in full force, and it came back with a vengeance. But she picked me up and said, yeah, it burnt down. What had happened was one of the fry cooks had made a mistake, and that mistake had caught fire to everything. We go there, and sure enough, the store completely blackened, ruins. One of the pool. I actually have a few of the balls. I think a few cue balls from the fire still. They'd been singed and burnt. My Uncle Tom wound up keeping the 8-ball. He wanted the 8-ball. He let me have those, and I think I have like another numerical ball. But I always thought, man, I considered breaking in a few times when there was like police tape up, but I was like, no, because then the police will arrive, not realizing how the implications of a police force that is that widely available to realize whenever someone goes inside of a burnt down building. But I didn't go back there for fear. But yeah, it burnt down, and so ended the pool. Well, the pool was already gone at that point, but so ended the rest of the. And I said it wasn't really. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, but that was a pretty major cut to the resort, and I think one that he never fully rebounded from. Guys, I'm looking at the recording now, and it's actually 29 minutes and some odd seconds in. I think I'm going to end it there. It's a little bit longer, but thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.